Hi, welcome. I'm Violet, dietetic intern, and today we will be making scallion pancakes using green onions. We'll start with just 2 cups of unsifted all-purpose white flour. We will be using a butter knife to scrape off any excess from the top to make sure that we are measuring exactly 2 cups of flour. And then once this is measured, we can put this directly into our large mixing bowl. And then once we have those 2 cups measured out, we're going to use our hands to create a well right in the middle of our flour. So we want to be making a concave area for our water to sit when we add it in our next step. So what that looks like here is just a small hole right in the center. And the water that we're adding, it's 1/2 cup of boiling water. So I'm adding it directly from the kettle here, measuring out that 1/2 cup, and then adding it to that center spot in our flour. And then we're going to let that flour sit with the water for 10 minutes. We're going to set it aside, and while it's sitting there for 10 minutes, we're going to cut our scallions. And when we cut the scallions, we want them to be fairly thin. If they're too big of chunks, they can either stretch the dough in a funny way or just have a funny texture while we're eating our product at the very end. So we want really thin slices here, using only those dark green ends of our scallions. And we're going to be cutting 2 cups of these green parts. So once you get to the end where it starts to get a little bit more fibrous, we're going to set those aside. These are great for creating your own vegetable broths at home, so I like to save those ends and store them in the fridge for later. So I'll put all those ends in a plastic bag and pop those in a fridge. And then I'm just going to clean up my space so that we can move on to our dough. And so for our dough, it's been sitting for those 10 minutes. Now we're going to add our salt, our 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then we're going to add our tablespoon of canola oil. And we're also going to add 1/4 cup ice cold water right in with the rest, making sure you don't spill any. And then we're going to mix that with a wooden spoon. We want it to be really well incorporated. And then once you get it to a certain point, it'll get sticky on your spoon. You can switch over to using your hands. And you want it to form one big ball. So you can see here, it's starting to come together. Still some flour falling off, and that's completely normal. So you want it to be in that ball in the center. Cover it with a towel and let it sit for an additional 10 minutes and just set it aside. Now that it's done sitting for 10 minutes, we're going to move on to kneading our dough. We're going to knead it for about 3 minutes here. You can add a little bit of extra flour just so it's not getting too sticky. If you haven't kneaded dough in the past before, it's fairly simple. It can be a little tiring. Adding a little bit of flour as the dough might become sticky, but we're just going to press down with the base of our palm and then flip our dough over to keep kneading that way. So we'll push forward, grab the dough, fold it back, and then push forward, grab the dough, fold it back. And you want to keep doing this until that dough feels fairly smooth, so about 3 minutes. So we're nearing the end here. You can see it's become pretty smooth. We're just forming it into a small ball. And then we will cover our dough with a damp towel. And then once we put this towel on top, we're going to let our dough sit for an additional 10 minutes. And then now that it's been sitting for 10 minutes, we are going to cut our dough into 4 equal pieces, so 4 quarters. Might be a little stretchy. And then you should just be able to do this with a butter knife. So we'll cut it into those 4 pieces, set 3 aside, and begin working with one of them. So as we work with our 1 piece of dough, we're just going to begin rolling it out as best as you can into a circle. So to achieve that circle rather than getting a rectangle, just make sure that you are pressing the dough in all directions. So we'll go from the sides, side to side, top to bottom, going in all directions to pull the dough out from the center, trying to avoid that rectangular shape. And we'll go until we get a fairly thin pancake shape here. And then once again, if it does start to stick, feel free to add just a little bit of flour so that you can easily roll out your dough. Sometimes it can be helpful to flip your dough over like I've just done there, and then continue rolling out that way. So you can see the thickness here, it's fairly thin. And at this point, what we're going to do is add a little bit of oil. So we're adding some oil just so all of our seasonings stick. Just using a little bit of canola or olive oil here, using a brush to brush it on. And then once you have your oil on, completely covering our pancake shape, we will add our 5-spice Chinese blend. You can sprinkle that right on top. We've got a tablespoon for the whole recipe, and then being fairly liberal with the amount of green onions that you're adding to your pancake here. And we'll just add those right on top. And you can see here, you want those edges to be kind of clear so that when we're rolling, as we're going to here, not too much is spilling out the sides. We're just going to roll up into a long log, and then once you reach that log shape, we're going to roll it out even further so you make that log even skinnier. You can roll with just your hands or press it the way I am here to kind of get out any excess air that might be occurring from those green onions inside, and keep rolling. You might find a couple of tears, that's completely okay. Just continue to make that longer log shape. And then once you have it into your desired thickness, you can begin spiraling it into a snail type of shape or a shell type of shape. And it should look a little like this, just rolled up into that snail shape. And then we're going to actually press that shape down with a rolling pin one more time, once again going up and down, side to side, creating that circular shape with our rolling pin. And we want this to be fairly flat, as it is a pancake. And then once again at this step, if it does stick a little to your rolling pin, it's completely fine to add just a little bit of flour. And so we're pulling out from the center, creating that really flat pancake shape. And then once you have that desired thickness, we're going to add on a little bit more oil just to the top here so that we can get it ready for frying. Completely covering our pancake with that oil. And at this point, this is what your pancake will look like, and it's ready to add to our pan. And so we have it in our pan here, start sizzling, and then we are just going to give it a quick flip, and it should be fairly brown. And then we're going to make our sauce now. So our sauce is a little bit of chili oil, sesame oil, and soy sauce. You can use equal parts of all of these. That's sesame oil, our soy sauce. I use low sodium soy sauce here to just reduce that sodium content a bit. And if you're using that store-bought chili oil, you might need to give it a really good shake to get all of those chilies off the bottom. I'm just doing equal parts of all three, and then you can mix it up so that it's ready to serve. And you can just dip your pancakes in this oil, and our pancakes will be cut into triangles. And this is a very delicious treat. I hope you enjoy.